Hello, and you're very welcome to the JMac podcast. I'm John Man. Of course, the podcast is brought to you by Orgorich.com and Atak.ie. Use the JMac podcast to get 15% off on Orgorich.com and get the best skins gloves with Atak.ie. Be attack-minded. And today I'm joined by Gaelic Life and RTE journalist Niall McCoy to talk about the 2022 Football All-Ireland Championship and any current state of affairs. So really look forward to chatting with Niall today. How are you keeping?
John, how are you? How's things?
All good, sir. All good. Thank God. Can't complain. How's life?
Not so bad. A bit weird being in the start of September and the county season being long done. It's a bit unusual for us, but we'll just have to readjust, John, you know.
Oh yeah, big time. And I suppose your take on that, obviously, you know, club action is in full swing at the minute, and it's getting down to nitty gritty. Definitely here in Cavan, we're in semi-final time, so around the country, it's really getting to the hot and heavy nature of it. But I suppose, in fairness, I think it was John Duggan from News Talk tweeted there yesterday. He misses the football championship, and don't know, did you see the tweet? He got a bit of a backlash to it, obviously, with all the club ball. But what's your take on it?
No, I think John's tweet is fair enough. I hate this thing where we have to be sort of aligned to one side or the other. I'm a big county.
I agreed with him. I agreed with him.
Yeah. It is. Listen, I'm a club man first and foremost, so I'm all for the club getting extra. It does, you know, I'm not saying I disagree with it, but it does feel bizarre that, you know, we've been so long out now without any inter-county action, you know, the football hurling. I think the Camogie and the ladies finished off the season, you know, and it is strange to be at the end of August and being well past it, you know. So listen, it's like anything, it'll take time to adjust. I probably would like it to maybe stretch out a couple more weeks, not back to what it was, but maybe a week or two more. And I suppose I'm coming from a position where I follow a lot of Armagh and Down football, John, you know, and the Armagh Championship, bar the preliminary round, the first round hasn't happened yet. The Down first round only started there. So it sort of feels like it hasn't moved anything really in terms of bringing the club championship. Whereas you look at Donegal, Cavan, which were well into it. But then again, Fermanagh Championship hasn't started. Tyrone Championship hasn't started. You know, so it's sort of, I suppose I haven't really noticed much of a knock on in terms of what it's brought in terms of bringing the club championship closer to the summer months. But here, that might adjust in time. The Armagh leagues are very good and all too. So, yeah, listen, a period of readjustment, John, but we'll see how it goes. I'll not be doing any big judging on it just yet.
Yeah, no, definitely has been a big change. I suppose what you make up the split season, like, are you supportive of it? Obviously, it seems to be very good for the club players, and obviously it gives them a chance maybe to plan, or even county lads get a bit of a break after. So what's the general opinion on it?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the big thing this year is so many county boys getting to go to America and then being back for the club championships. You know, I think it's no coincidence that we saw a lot of superstars in the game, Rian O'Neill and a lot of the Mayo boys and all going out, and they probably wouldn't have had that opportunity. So I think that's great to see. Like, I'm sure they had a ball, they had a refresh. Those boys would come back to their club having spent, you know, maybe overindulging a wee bit, like, but they had the time of their lives. And I think anything that gets us away from this serious nature where a player has to be off the drink for 12 months, not allowed to go on holiday for 12 months, be training 3 nights a week for basically 12 months. I think taking a step back from that, I'm pretty pleased with, like, and it is those county players that have that real issue where they're serving 2 masters. So for those boys to get the batteries recharged, and the ladies obviously as well, is I think it's a really good thing. So for me, yeah, listen, no matter what we do in the GAA, it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to keep anyone happy, but at least it seems to be going okay. Proof will be in the pudding over the next couple of years. Like, we have a format change next year again, so it's hard to know how it'll work out. But so far, so good, yeah.
I suppose, and what's your kind of take on, like, probably get a bit of slack for, oh yeah, he's going to Canada, he's going to Boston, he's going wherever, like, and you know, he's not going to be around for the clubs. And a lot of lads, obviously, we've seen Kilmacud Crokes with Paul Manny coming back. But so, what's your take? Like, life is for living, Niall, too.
Oh God, I couldn't. Anyone that says these boys shouldn't go away really need to step into reality. Like, and here, listen, it's happened in my own club, Drummond. Like, you know, we've lost players this summer, and it's so frustrating as a supporter because you want your best players there. But bar the frustration of not having them there, you just have to be realistic. Like, these are young lads in most cases. They're young lads, and fair play to Desi Moan, who's a bit older, but him getting away, fair play to him. But in the majority of cases, they're lads in their early 20s, getting away, experiencing the world. I don't know how anyone could possibly disagree with it. Again, frustration, of course. You want your best players there, but Jesus, John, we have to let these boys live their lives. And the thing is, you keep those boys for longer. Even the club player that goes away for the summer, like, these boys need to recharge the batteries and take a break. So I'm all for it. Let them live. It's a small world, and let these boys go and experience it. They provide so much for us for so long. Let them enjoy their time, you know. And I know for some of the, and I know certain ladies and teams and different have had managers that have really been quite critical of players who have opted to go away to America or somewhere in the past. But I do think maybe the needle's moving a wee bit, and managers are realising the long-term importance of having a happy player. Because if you start denying a boy a trip away, there can only be resentment there. I know certainly I was never in that position, like, but if I was ever given a chance to go play a bit of ball in Chicago or something, and a club manager saying, no, you're not going or you're dropped, I wouldn't want to play for that boy again, you know. It would cause a real sort of issue. So here, they're all back pretty much for the club championship anyway, so I don't see what the real problem is anyway, John, at all. Fair play them, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, definitely more the same, hopefully, for next year's. Because at the end of the day, they're not getting paid, Niall, so it's good to experience a different way of living, absolutely. And I suppose, Niall, what did you make of the 2022 Football All-Ireland Championship? Obviously, Kerry did come out on top after, I suppose, they thought it was a famine. You know what I said, the first All-Ireland win since 2014, and God, it's I don't know how other counties' mindsets are for not winning All-Ireland after so many years. But so what was your general take on the 2022 Football Championship?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think there's a real revival of plot lines and different scenarios that we haven't seen in the last decade. The championship has been the poor relation to the league for the last decade, no doubt about it, because we all just expect the same things to happen. And the same things did generally happen. Donegal, Monaghan, Tyrone, Barda, Cowan, Cavan won Ulster. Dublin won the All-Ireland. You know, Mayo were there. It seemed like the same things were happening time and time again. This year, it's just felt a bit different. We obviously had the Derry revival. We had Galway getting to an All-Ireland final. We had Dublin not winning it, you know, which is a big thing this last 2 years. We had, I suppose, Armagh brought a lot of colour to the championship too. We had the Tashlin Cup, which I thought was fantastic. You know, I thought it really, really went well in its first outing. So I thought this was a great sort of restart year, a real restart season. And the fact is now, we're in the past decade, for most of the years, you had probably 3-4 teams who genuinely thought they could win an All-Ireland. There's probably about 10, 11 teams now, maybe more, looking saying, well, if the chips fall a certain way, you know, that could be us. You know, there's 10 teams there that could fancy beating Galway, and Galway weren't a million miles away from All-Ireland final. Look at the draw, injuries, all that comes into play. Dublin have lost that sort of cloak of invincibility, you know. Kerry are probably the one we don't know if they're going to be take off like Dublin did after that 2011 victory over Kerry. Will they put 4 or 5 All-Irelands back to back? I don't think they will. I just don't think they're as good to do that as Dublin were in their prime. But, you know, it just strikes me as a championship where teams from a number of divisions now feel like they can go on a good run. And that goes for your own county, Cavan. Like, you know, we're going to be talking about Armagh, Derry being potential All-Ireland contenders, right, over the next couple of years. And we'd be surprised if they don't start making semi-finals. Are you telling me Cavan don't think they could beat Derry and Armagh in a championship match? Like, so, you know, again, it's getting out of that Tailteann Cup. It's progressing forward, and all of a sudden, I think the possibilities are very, very open for a lot of teams. Whereas for so long there, it just seemed so narrow, and it was league football was for me what it was all about. You know, championship wasn't that enjoyable, really, to be honest with you. League football was far more enjoyable. So it seems to switch back a bit, and hopefully that's the way it goes, John, because you want a competitive championship with lots of contenders. Otherwise, it just becomes far too stale.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose Kerry obviously did win the All-Ireland this year, I suppose, Niall, but Dublin really weren't far away from them in the semi-final, and obviously we know Conor Callan, as everyone keeps saying, if he was fit, it could have definitely been a different story. You know, Galway, I suppose, did get their merit as well. Obviously, the former Shane Walsh being pivotal and Damien Comer, but I suppose, as you keep saying, it's great to have a competitive championship again, because the last couple of years, it has been quite dour.
Yeah, dour, that's a good word for it. It has been dour. You've been tuning in, but you haven't exactly been blown away. And you're right, that Dublin-Kerry match was fantastic. And, you know, Dublin being underdogs, how often have we seen that? And you're right, Conor, simple maths, would Conor been worth 2 points? Yeah, he absolutely would. But then obviously if he plays, the match takes a completely different path, so it's very hard to make it as simple as that. But he probably would have gotten over the line, you would have thought. But it was exciting. It was good matches. There's the Derry Donegal Ulster final got a lot of criticism. I thought some of it was unjust, but at the same time, you still had the storyline of Derry ending their famine in Ulster. So there still was a storyline for me to elevate that match and make it a real interesting spectacle. I watched the whole thing and I couldn't keep my eyes off it.
I loved it,
but it was interesting, the plot lines of it. The provincials, there's still obviously an issue with provincials. We're still waiting for someone in Leinster to, really put it up to Dublin. Like we're told time and time again that Meath are coming or Kildare are coming, and they just fluff their lines. Same in Munster. Cork put it up to Kerry for 50 minutes and then were blown away. So some signs there, and there is a lot of good underage success in Cork. So Ulster, go back to Ulster again. Ulster is just going to be manic in 2023. Like, try calling a winner from that, John. I don't think you can. But yeah, it's went from a Derek championship now to a championship with real possibilities. And you just need a couple of years of different plot lines and different stories just to elevate it back to the heights again. It's not going to take one season. I'm not saying the 2020 championship was the best championship of all time, certainly not. But there was enough interest in plot lines to keep you involved, and that's all you want in a championship season.
Yeah, you're taking obviously this year's Ulster final, and obviously, as you rightly said there, like those Ulster championships going to be unbelievable next year. But I think a lot of people are saying it was a dour game of football, but I think I'd rather have that game of football than the Munster final, the Leinster final, Niall, to be honest with you, or even the Connacht final, even to a degree. So it was a great game. Derry got over the line. Obviously, Rory Gallagher leading the Derry lads up them steps in Clonus, and I think it was a great game. I think it got a lot of undeserved slack.
Yeah, no, I agree. You hit the nail on the head there. I'd take that over Kerry beating someone by 20 points in the Munster final any day of the week. Now, the first 10 minutes, I did want to pull my eyes out. It was probably the worst 10 minutes of football I've ever seen in my life. But it developed into a good tactical battle. Okay, we want to see a bit more risk taken. That's where I think everyone looks at that last minute when Donegal played the ball around the centre of the park and didn't go for a score, and the impact that had on their season, because if they had went for it and got the score, suddenly their season takes a whole different direction. It didn't. From there, they lost, and obviously lost quite heavily to Armagh, and were really outplayed for long stretches of that game. So I agree. It was close matches are what you want. Like, okay, again, there is still a bit of conservatism in Ulster football. Like, it's hard to get away from that. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It was a different sort of match. There was a lot of really good play. The performance of Brendan Rodgers, I think, will live long in the memory of Derry fans. A lot of good moments. But I've watched a lot of, just for different projects, a lot of football recently from back in the day of when it was meant to be great, the early 2000s and all. And it most definitely was more exciting. There's no doubt about it. It was more exciting, but the quality was definitely lower. The skills weren't the same. There was a lot of ball being kicked away up and down the pitch, a lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, which added to it in a lot of ways. We don't really have those mistakes now. That's the issue. Everyone plays a safe ball, and it's about cutting out the opportunities for mistakes, let alone even making mistakes. So we don't have that helter-skelter feel anymore in most matches, not all matches. I think the Taxman Cup was a throwback to that, just give it a go, and with obviously high-skilled players, it worked quite well. So everyone pines for the past, but the past had a lot of muck as well, a lot of mistake-ridden football. So if we could find some sort of happy medium there, and I think over the last couple of years, we've definitely seen managers revert to a more attacking style. I think we all heard about the blanket defences and all, and while there'll always be covers and plus ones and clamps and whatever term coaches want to use these days, I think managers generally have been trying to get more out of their attack these days. And it's evolution. Even Derry, who were ridiculed for being quite defensive this year under Rory Gallagher at times. Well, firstly, you got to an All-Ireland semi-final, winning an Ulster title, having been so long without one. So first job done, brilliant. Secondly, I think back to watching Donegal in 2011 against Dublin and that famous match when the crowd was booing. What Jim McGuinness and Rory Gallagher did, that's all season is to develop their attacking play and come back the next year. They were a much better side, obviously won the All-Ireland because they had work on that. I expect Derry's attacking play to be much better next season. Like, you know, they can't do it all in 1 year. They weren't expected to win Ulster this year. They weren't expected to get past Tyrone in the first round. So not that they're learning on their job, but they were straight into it. And I'd expect in 2023 to see a different Derry, not a completely different Derry, but a much more cohesive attacking Derry. And for me, they'll probably be a stronger side next year.
Yeah, that's kind of the main point. But I suppose if you can stick with Ulster, like what maybe do you feel? Maybe I suppose we can touch on last year's All-Ireland champions Tyrone and other down series tours as well, Niall. But what do you maybe feel happened this year? And obviously we see Conor McKinnon heading back to Australia now, Niall. So I suppose what do you think was the crack with them this year?
Yeah, and listen, you know, just talking to ones involved and around the camp, I don't think there's any major issue. I think there's a lot of boys and who just have their All-Ireland. Sometimes when you have the All-Ireland, it's very hard to keep that hunger up. We've seen Tyrone struggle 4 times now to defend their All-Ireland title and been very meek pretty much in all those defences. Even when they're at the height of their powers in 04 and 06, like they couldn't get over the line again. It's hard to know. And the thing is, a lot of people are saying those departures, there weren't many starters, but what they are maybe the first men onto the field, you know, for injuries and subs. So the impact of that is you're missing your first reserves in training, you're missing them in training matches, you're missing them coming off the bench. They felt it. And I suppose they're very poor against Derry, although you can look to a moment of discipline, maybe turn the match. Against Armagh, I was at that match, they got the early goal and I thought, right, here we go, Thrones. And to be honest, they were awful. Like they didn't have any intensity in their tackling. And I don't know, I think it could be just down to a wee hangover from winning All-Ireland. It was a strange All-Ireland to win. Obviously there was a lot of COVID issues. They won it in front of a half-full stadium. Didn't get to celebrate probably the same way as All-Ireland teams generally do. Obviously had a lot of turnover. When you've got if I'm a fringe player and I've got a Celtic cross, I probably can't step away a bit content. I'll always be an All-Ireland winner. So it was just a bit of a hangover for me, John. I suppose proof will be in the pudding this year. It's hard to know. It's hard to know with Tyrone. I certainly would not be thinking Tyrone are on the wane. I'd expect them to bounce back really strongly this year. The only thing is they're going back into a really competitive Ulster Championship now. So listen, it's all about getting a bit ahead of steam in the league and then into the championship and then into the new round robin format and take it from there. But listen, they've had a year off, which they tend to do even in the Mickey Hardy era. They usually had a year off after the All-Ireland and then they came back. So I would expect Tyrone, as always, to be there thereabouts.
So it was Armagh, your own county as well, Niall. It was a good year. He's obviously got to the All-Ireland quarter-final against Galway. Obviously, you know, Kieran McGeeney's really trying to make a big stab at an Ulster Championship or even an All-Ireland now to a degree, the way things are opening up. And obviously Kieran McKeever and Kieran Donaghy in the backroom team as well. So they're sticking about for another year, Niall. So, you know, things are definitely on the up.
Yeah. And listen, I think there's a lot of debate over how good Armagh's season actually was. They only got to a quarter-final. They didn't win an Ulster title. They really underperformed against Donegal and Ballybofey. Listen, there's no doubt about it. Armagh had a really, really good season. I think a lot of people think Armagh are a one-time All-Ireland winner. They haven't won an Ulster title since 2008. I think Armagh, there's a feeling, and probably within the county too, that Armagh are a heavyweight. Armagh are by no means a GA heavyweight. There should be no right that Armagh should be challenging for All-Irelands constantly. Never in Armagh's history, bar a glorious 10-year period when they produced an unbelievable team, have Armagh been regulars on the All-Ireland semi-final, final stage. Now, what they did this year is they made genuine progress where those who were doubting them within the county could see real progress. They stayed up, they were excellent in the league, a good league start got them on the way, you know. They were really, really competitive. Lost to Mayo, could have won it. Lost to Kerry. Kerry were very good that day, but a really positive league campaign. Went to Ballybofey, were expected probably to win or at least be right there. Were awful, and people thought, right, that season over. I think there were 6 weeks between Ballybofey and their Tyrone match, and whatever happened in those 6 weeks, everything changed because they looked a completely different animal against Tyrone. And I've always said McGeeney's, I'd love to know how much Kieran wants to win an Ulster title, or how much Kieran wants to get to the latter stage of the All-Ireland. As a player, by the time he was picking up his whatever 5th, 6th Ulster title, like he would openly saying that, the All-Ireland, the second All-Ireland is what this team wants, and the Ulster title had lost that sort of verb for him. Now, it's 2008, so we're going to be 15 years since Armagh won Ulster title, so I love an Ulster title. But I just love to know how much McGeeney actually values an Ulster title. I'd say if you ask Kieran, do you want an Ulster title or do you want to be around an All-Ireland semi-final, it's an easy answer for him. And the boys, their best runs under McGeeney have always come through the qualifiers. Always. Like, it was 2018, they got to the quarterfinal as well, came through the back door, Kildare, Westmeath, I think Tipperary as well. They suit the back door, they seem to suit it. Got to play in athletic grounds, set them on their way against Tyrone. Obviously beat Donegal and were really impressive in that match. And then Galway comes and listen, they probably ran out a bit of steam with injuries and stuff. Oisin O'Neill is probably a massive loss. Niall Grimley was a massive loss. The two Mackins were massive losses. I know Kieran came on late in that match. And then to go 80 minutes, extra time penalties, it's a harsh way to lose, So, and Galway obviously went on and got very close to Kerry. So for me, it was a real year of progress, John. It's about building on that. I think they have the attack now to really be a top team. And like everyone, it'll just be about securing Division 1 safety and taking it from there. But I don't care what anyone says, it was a very good season for Armagh. People can argue about they only won 2 championship matches. I do not care. It was a very good year for Armagh.
Absolutely. And you feel Kieran McGeeney is the right man to kind of keep pushing forward. Obviously, he's going to be there next year, and it feels like all hands are on deck. And obviously, with Kieran Donaghy being there as well, like Kieran Donaghy's had a big influence in this Armagh team.
Yeah, I know he has. Just speaking to different people, and I know that again revert back to the two O'Neills, who are the sort of boys with a similar stature to him, big physical men who can play a full forward. I know they both have really enjoyed working with him. He seems to have really bought in, like just watching him on the sideline. I remember it must have been his first season being up in Enniskillen and there was no crowd allowed, I don't think, because of COVID. So you could hear everything that was being said by the coaches and all, and it was just quite as interesting listening to so enthusiastic he was about it. Very positive character about what they're going to do, very positive to the players, very words of encouragement throughout the match. And obviously the thing about him, he's a basketball genius too, Kieran, as well as obviously Gaelic football. So he's bringing a lot to a team that has that sort of height and strength in attack. Like they're a big team up front now, and boys like Stephen Campbell and different players like that had super years in attack as well. Rory Grugan, these boys are all going to learn a load off someone like Kieran Donaghy. So he's back on board, as you say, for another year. That'll be year 3. First year, you always give a bit of a bye ball. Second year, there seemed to be real progress in their attack and play. So hopefully they can continue that. And I believe with Kieran, they're spearheading that. They will continue that.
I suppose it's early days yet, but how much are you looking forward to next year's, I suppose, All Ireland as a whole, but Ulster Championship, Niall, it's going to be mouth-watering.
It really is, and I know we're sitting here, John, and we've no idea who's going to take Monaghan and Donegal job, so it's going to be an interesting run-up, because whoever comes in, if you're waiting this long for a manager, usually you'd say, like, look at James McCartan coming in against Down last year. He's a real late appointment around the same gap, I suppose, as Donegal and Monaghan are having, and he was coming in really late November. I think he came in with the championship moved back a bit. Monaghan and Donegal are having a real issue getting a manager, but at the same time, they're almost certainly going to have someone in by September, so it's not the end of the world in terms of time. I can imagine any candidate who has genuine interest in the Donegal and Monaghan job has been watching Monaghan and the Donegal club football, or at least keeping abreast of what's developing. So it's probably not the issue that it would have been in previous years, but Ulster, I don't know, John, it's like, I'm looking at it now, and even after having a new manager there, Kieran Donaghy's a great man for managing. He's no Mabin Cavan, obviously, as well. There's no team that would win the Ulster. Now, different teams will have ambitions of winning the Ulster, but I would generally say 6 teams would have genuine ambitions to win the Ulster. Darren Antrim from Fermanagh would have real ambitions of making real progress. Two of them have new management teams, and Kieran Donnelly, as I mentioned, has already got the Cullen boys back on board from Fermanagh, and so expecting more from Fermanagh this year. So you're going to have 6 teams with genuine ambitions and 3 teams that will feel that they can really push on to. So yeah, it's going to be great. Obviously, the issue with provincial championships now is, you know, the new format, the round robin format coming into play. How much is it held in esteem? How much will teams take it seriously? It's obviously linked to it in different ways with seasons and different things like that. But it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of years just how the Ulster Championship is played out, whether it becomes less important to these counties. Because I don't know about you, I find it very hard to struggle to work out what way teams are going to approach the provincials next year and over the coming years, depending on how these group stages start to go.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose obviously kind of touching the kind of new management teams. What have you made in recent weeks? Obviously, of Kevin McStay getting the Mayo job after all these years, and you know his backroom team of Liam McHale and Stephen Rochford, like to name a few. Niall, it's they're going to make one more push at it.
Yeah. I feel sorry for the Sunday game. They've lost McStay, O'Rourke, and Ashley McConville. 3 of their main pundits. I know McConville wasn't a mainstay, but one of their better pundits. Have lost 3 in a matter of time. McStay, listen, fair play to Kevin. He walks the walk. I really like Kevin as a pundit. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. I really like him, but I have massive respect for anyone who steps away from a nice media career where it could sit to actually get in and get involved with a team and get stuck in like that. And same with Colin O'Rourke, same with Oisín obviously as well. A massive respect for anyone who does that, because they're sitting here criticising and not criticising but analysing teams, and people are like, oh well, get stuck in there, and it's like, right, okay, we will, and they do, and they're taking on a team. Now unfortunately for Kevin, I think that Mayo team's going to struggle. I just can't see them hitting the heights that they're at. I stayed after the Armagh Galway match. I stayed for most of the Kerry Mayo game. Now, it was like a challenge match because the atmosphere of the first game, everyone was drained, and that's, I suppose, what to be expected given what had happened half an hour before. But Kerry looked like it was a close match. Mayo missed a handful of chances, and still I was just sitting there thinking, Kerry have another couple of gears here to really need it. They're getting quite old in a number of positions, and I just think it's going to be difficult for Mayo to get back to the top table. But in McStay, they have a good motivator, they have a good man there. As you mentioned, they're the backroom teams. It sounds first class. So they have a really, really good, strong backroom team. They have a man with real passion, will bring real passion to the job. And here, it's Mayo. And many times have we said Mayo are done now, and they keep reappearing. Like we thought they were done last year, and they reached the All-Ireland final. Got caught out by Tyrone, obviously, but to beat Dublin when they were struggling so much in the first half. So, of any team outside Armagh, I'd love to see win All-Ireland. I think speak for most counties at this stage, see Mayo over the line would just be fantastic.
Obviously, as you rightly said there, Colin O'Rourke's gone in with me after all these years as well, so much like Kevin McStay. I suppose what was the thoughts on that? And I suppose, look, it's a bit of an uphill task, obviously, with the Leinster Championship, and I suppose Colin's probably just going to get a bit of pride back in the jersey for lads to play. I want to play for Meath, but I suppose what's the thoughts on Colin O'Rourke on him with Meath, Niall?
Yeah, pride in the jersey, that's it. They've been in the shadow of Dublin, but so's the whole country. It's not as if it's just Meath, and it's probably the most famed outside Dublin Kerry rivalry G has ever had. It's sad to see it so one-sided. When was the last time they beat them? I think it possibly took that mad 2010 season when I think they had 6 goals or something in the Leinster semi-final, if I remember correctly. And it's been a real one-sided affair since. So I'd say maybe football supporters are realistic at this stage. It's about closing the gap, and O'Rourke can't be expected to overtake Dublin this year or the next year. What would be expected? Close the gap. Try and get Meath after that Division 1, because that's where you need to be playing. It's really, I watched a lot of Division 1 games this year, and it's fantastic football. It's real high quality stuff. So they've been sort of floundering in that mid-Division 2 sort of area for a while now, and getting them up to Division 1 promotion would be probably the main target for season 1, and take it from there. Because it's Meath, they're football royalty, and they're just essentially a non-entity middle-of-the-road team at the moment, which is very unusual for me. But that's O'Rourke. O'Rourke, again, we talk about McStay being enthusiastic. I don't know Colin personally. I'd imagine he'll be very demanding in a sort of, this is me, this is what you need to do for me sort of way. Again, surround himself with good men. I know Sean Boylan's going to be involved in some capacity. We're not 100% sure yet. So I suppose it's a throwback to where Meath were. And here, listen, it could be the formula that worked. Andy McEntee, I think it's sort of probably dragged on a wee bit in the end, or got a wee bit messy, but he's up in Antrim now. It's a fresh start for him with Antrim. It's a fresh start for Meath. And again, like I say, at McStay, anyone who gets stuck into the management end of things when there are other options there deserves respect.
Yeah, no, I'll have to ask you about Andy McEntee going out with the Antrim lads, and obviously he done work with off the ball, saying I'll not be going near any other county. I think 1 week, 2 weeks later, Antrim manager. There you go.
I did the blue too. I hadn't heard a sniff. I hadn't heard an absolute sniff. I think I turned on Twitter one night and it was there. So that's the way all football announcements should be done. We look at what's happening in Monaghan now, and we've got so many people linked, and there has been boys have been interviewed and in and out and in and out. But just get your job done, get your man, put it on Twitter. And I think a lot of management appointments are becoming complicated, where you have subcommittees and committees, and you have to apply and you have to do this and that. I think counties should just go pick a man, go approach him if he wants a job done, and that's obviously what happened in Antrim, because it's a very, very good appointment. Andy McGinley done a very good job, I thought. I think he was a bit unlucky. One of the things with Antrim that seems quite evident is their strength and conditioning seems to be well behind. Even Cavan, we saw them against Cavan, and I was like men against boys in certain sections of the field. And that's, I don't work in strength and conditioning, and it's very hard for me to work it out. But just talking to different S&C coaches, and they're like, that's not a 1 year process. That's a 3 or 4 year process to get anywhere near it. And I suppose Cavan are miles ahead. A lot of teams are miles ahead physically on them. So McEntee, I'd imagine that'll be one of the first areas he looks like at, is their strength and conditioning. The thing about Antrim football is it's an incredibly competitive club championship. A lot of very good players at schools level playing up in different schools in Derry on the border there and different things like that. Antrim should be doing a lot better, given obviously its population size, its club scene, its school scene, but to just continue to tread water. So listen, McEntee, hopefully he'll give them a real jolt there, because the talent seems to be in the county, just they can't seem to manifest it into a proper on-pitch performance in the championship. Obviously, playing a lot of Division 4 football over the last couple of years certainly has hampered them. They see themselves as a Division 3, a high-end Division 3 team that could make it Division 2 if everything goes well, but at the moment they're miles off that. So McEntee, listen, it's a fresh voice. Continuing the good work Andy McGinley done, and I am sure he will manage at a very high level again in the future, and hopefully, because I'd like to see Antrim do really well. I think it'd be good for the GAA if Antrim's doing well, much like Dublin when they struggled, and we're told that Dublin being good is good for the GAA, and it was. Probably got a bit too good now, but I think Antrim, as Ireland's second city there, really needs to start, Belfast second city, really start producing the goods at county level of football. And we've seen the strides that hurlers have taken, and we've seen the project Darren Gleeson's overseeing, where everyone's rode in behind them. Everyone's speaking really, really well. And I've covered Antrim hurlers for 15 years now maybe, and there was always issues, cliques and different things with management and the hurling scene. But the last couple of years, it's been a real unified Antrim camp. So if the football can take something from that too, get really behind the football, there's room for real progression there. And hopefully you see it. Hopefully.
Absolutely. And in recent weeks, obviously, we've seen Paddy Christie get the Longford job, but Liam Cairns has gone in with Offaly. Billy Lee's left Limerick. Jack Cooney's left Limerick, Westmeath. Mon and Donegal are obviously still looking for managers, and Eamon Leper-Callan's gone in with the Carlow Backer team. I suppose here's the recent weeks, obviously, Niall, that Jack Cooney stepped away from Westmeath and Billy Lee stepped away from Limerick. And look, I suppose life kind of happens as well, Niall, but definitely two interesting bits of news in the recent weeks.
Yeah, and two big blows to the county. I don't know, I presume the Westmeath County Board were expecting Jack's GA job, the role of the GA there, that they're expecting that news. I'd say it was a shock to the supporters. Coming off a Tailteann Cup win, really, really popular. Westmeath, again, another county that has plenty of raw materials. It felt like Cooney was going to oversee Westmeath, in their push forward, but listen, work got in the way, and that's fine. There's not much you can do about it. Same with Limerick. Billy Lee has done wonders with Limerick. Absolute wonders. Division 2 next year, playing the likes of Dublin and all, and different teams. You think that would be, for all the wonders, you think that would be his reward, getting to run the line against Desi Farrell and Dublin and different teams like that, and Kildare and different sides. But again, speaking to him, just work commitments and all that sort of stuff has gotten in the way. We all coaches, we all love the inter-county managers, but the level of commitment is just off the charts. And there is a lifespan on it, which makes your Kieran McGee's and your Colin Collins is it's so impressive that they have managed to stay in charge, whether people want them in or different things like that. The fact that they've been there for so long is a really impressive feat, because I'd imagine it's a job that just wears you down after a couple of years. I don't think we're going to see too many managers around for that 8 or 9 years anymore. The days of the Brian Cody are probably gone, or very much near gone anyway. So I think Limerick in particular, I'm interested to see who gets the job, because they have made rapid progress there. It's an attractive, there'll be favourites to go down Division 2, don't get me wrong, but how would you not like the opportunity to be Limerick manager, playing some of the top teams, and arguably the best top team in the country in Dublin, or second best behind Kerry. So yeah, interesting appointments. A lot of appointments this year, John. So there's a lot of new managers next year, which adds a whole lot of extra spice to it as well.
Yeah, I have to ask you as well. And obviously, we see in recent weeks about, as you rightly said there, about managing, taking its toll, the commitment, the work that goes into it. It's probably like a full-time job, really, Niall. But talking about all this, Monaghan, Donegal, we said at the start, no managers just yet. And I know obviously Jason Sherlock and Gerard Brennan were hotly tipped for the Monaghan job, and Donegal, Rory Kavanagh was strongly linked up there. Malachy O'Rourke. What do you feel has happened up there, Niall, in both counties?
I'm not sure. Donegal has the big issue. Geographical issue is a massive thing for Donegal there. Listen, if Donegal were, I would say Donegal are well down the favourites list for the All-Ireland 2023. If they are where they were in 2011, 2012, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who'll be willing to take that journey just when they went backwards a wee bit. And there's question marks over Donegal, over certain things. How long can Michael Murphy continue? Do they have the players, or is there too many miles on the clock? And that's probably put a few potential candidates off. But again, the geographical thing, when they're in that situation and they're so far away from everyone, it really narrows down the potential pool of managers. And they seem to be really struggling like this. I think there has been interviews with certain people who have taken place, but there seems to be nothing firm. Monaghan, we've had half of Dublin linked at this stage, and it's... the thing about both jobs are still very attractive jobs for me. Both have had good underage. Mark Hoonihan, who is heavily linked, he done great things with the Monaghan minors. Donegal underage has done very well over the last couple of years too. There's obvious talent coming through, but there's just question marks hanging over both teams. Monaghan, is there a few players maybe going travelling next year? Is the likes of Conor McManus and all coming towards the end? Well, we know they are with their age group, right, but how long are they going to play on for? Are you going to get the 2-3 years out that they need for a project to work? So there's a couple of question marks over. We talk about the workload of management, and it just seems to be maybe scaring off a few people. I don't know what's happening with these management teams breaking down with people that are linked with it, but it's still Monaghan and Donegal. It's still
that's what I'm saying.
Two top 8 teams, Monaghan, I think, have been Division 1 since 2015. A few brilliant escape acts, but they've been there since 2015. They're, again, teams that wouldn't fear the likes of Armagh or Galway or Tyrone or any of them on their day. Most definitely wouldn't. Very hard to make an argument for them being on the level of Kerry and Dublin, but it's strange. It feels like there would have been people queuing up for these jobs in the past, but just at the moment, it's just becoming very hard to fill. And as I mentioned earlier, it's nothing to be panicking about, seeing that we're at the start of September. But if this was a normal season and had taken this long, and probably they wouldn't have if they had a smaller window. Maybe both counties are just taking their time. taking their time because they know they have time on their side this time. But it's just a wee bit weird for me that two top jobs like that seem to be dragging out this long.
I suppose what you feel is kind of happened like with Monaghan, like if Jason Sherlock, Jerry Brennan kind of did fall through, and like obviously I know as I said this a couple of seconds ago, with obviously Rory Cavan and Donegal, like what you maybe feel like is it the time that goes into it, Niall, or I don't know, what is it, like a breakdown in communication, or what you feel it is?
Well, there's been a lot of talk for the Monaghan ones anyway. Now, I wouldn't be as au fait with what's happening in Donegal as I would in Monaghan, like, but there seems to be suggestions in Monaghan that a lot of these teams have failed to get the background teams that they wanted, and that's the thing about a management ticket now. It's as much about the backroom team as it is about the man leading it. So I don't know how true it is. I'm not going to pretend to know the complete ins and outs. You hear different things like that, but the management team is as important as the manager these days. And if you don't feel you're getting the right management team, and we've seen countless examples over the years of managers pulling out a job, saying that they're about to take because they couldn't get that coach they wanted, or couldn't get that, selector that they thought they had on board. Someone has a late change of heart. So I don't know if that's what's happening here in Monaghan. I'd imagine it would be something close to that mark that's forced these boys away. They haven't been able to put the team in place that they expected to. I would doubt to be anything about communication or anything like that, personally speaking, just knowing the different people in the county. But who knows, John? It's a bit of mystery. These things happen in most counties and you don't hear too much about it, but it does seem a bit strange, particularly in Monaghan, that we've had so many links and nothing's come of it.
So it's kind of last question around all this. Do you feel the game's in a good place at the minute, Niall? Like, I suppose, are you enjoying going to cover the games? Like, or is it kind of getting you going?
It is, yeah, it is. Speaking to Stephen Poacher, coach often about this, about the criticism of defensive football, and his argument would be that the game has never had as many skills, high quality skills, and he's right. Players have never been this skillful in their life. I think there's still an issue of managers letting them off the leash to show those skills. I think there, as I talked about previously, there still is that conservatism that we see in matches, and not all counties, but most counties. And it'd be nice to see that sort of roll back a bit and a bit more trust in players to play their stuff. But listen, I think the last year's championship really sort of revived it for a lot of people. I think the club championships are always outstanding. Like, you just, any county, there's always a story. Like, even looking, at the weekend there in Cavan, some great games, and Kingscourt and Gown and different things like that. And everywhere you look, once we get the knockout football and hurling in clubs, it takes on life of its own. And the TG coverage is excellent, and I think the RTE coverage is starting soon too. So it's I love it. I always will love it, John. I love nothing more than going to watch a match, particularly as a neutral where you have no stock and bet, and you can just sit and watch a good match. And it's been a good year. It's been a good year. I enjoyed this year. Certainly after a couple of years of not enjoying the championship. But I must say again, the league for the last number of years has been sensational. It is absolutely fantastic. And in any other sport, it'll be the premier competition. It should be the premier competition linked to the championship in the GAA. We'll probably get there eventually, but the national leagues are an absolute piece of gold in the GAA.
Oh, imagine if we done the league like the championship, Niall. That would be a scary thought.
Don't talk. If I hear the word proposal being GMO.
Oh God, 100%, Niall, 100%. And I have to ask you also about your book, Kings for a Day: The Story of Armagh and their 2002 journey to Sam Maguire, and give a wee piece on it. The 22nd of September 2002 is a date ingrained in the mind of every Armagh fan, as the Sam Maguire was lifted in front of a sea of orange and white for the first time. 20 years on, the Orchard Stars fans and opponents all contribute to paint a valid picture of the day that Armagh were kings for a day. Niall McCoy, what's the reason behind this book?
Yes, sadly, kings for a day and not days. That's the thing about this Armagh story. It was, I've been saying it's essentially the Mayo story with so many near misses bar that 1 year. So I always wanted to do about John, always had that ambition, and no better subject. 20 years, couldn't believe it's 20 years, like, make you feel old, but 20 years since 02. And no better team. Like, I was there, I followed that team from their infancy to their conclusion. And the book's actually, it's centered around 2002, but it's essentially Armagh 97 to Armagh 2007. the two Brian's era and the Joe Kiernan era. And it's just a look at a lot of people were so helpful with their time, different people were interviewed and different things like that. And it's just sort of, hopefully, an enjoyable sort of reflection on the journey of that team, who eventually got there. Didn't get the second All-Ireland, but they have won All-Ireland. So a real sort of reflective. And as I say, I always want to do a book, no better subject. So Labour of Love, out now in just over 2 weeks. And I hope people enjoy it anyway. Hopefully, people even outside Armagh get a bit of enjoyment out of John, because it's a good GA story. I think the Armagh team, I don't think it's limited obviously to Armagh people alone. I think it's a good GA story that this team that went so close so often and just looked destined never to get over the line, and like never in the county's history. You know, it was their first ever All Ireland, but that day in 2002, never to be forgotten.
Much work going into it.
Oh yeah, a lot of work. A lot of interviews, John. You know, it's all right me reflecting on it, like, but I wanted it to be told by the people that were involved. And listen, that's not just Armagh people. Like, you know, you take the 2003 JMac Morrison send off. Like, you know, if I'm writing as an Armagh man and JMac Morrison and Armagh people are commenting, it's only fair that Philip Jordan gets a comment on it. So, you know, Philip talks to me about it and different things like that, talk to some opponents so down through the years. And so a lot of work went into it, a lot of interviews. People were so generous, very, very generous with their time, which I'll be eternally grateful for. So a lot of effort just transcribing and stuff, but they were brilliant. You know, people were really, really good at the time and so helpful and so open, and that just added to it. So my job was simply to collate it, like, you know, was collating these boys' stories, and that's all it was. But a real enjoy trip down memory lane, John.
Super stuff, man. Well, the very best luck with it. It'll be a great read, and hopefully everyone can get their hands on a copy. It'll be a great reading coming into the winter, especially now. So best of luck with it. Niall McCoy, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, the podcast is brought to you by Orgarich.com and Atak.ie. Is RoboCo JMac podcast to get 15% off on Orgarich.com and to get the best skins. Go through Atak.ie. Be attack minded. Niall, thanks a million. Enjoy the club action this weekend, and you're top man.
Thank you.